Hello everybody and welcome back to Robot Framework Tips, Tricks and Tutorials channel. Today it's a very special opportunity because it is the first video of what I hope to be a very long series in which we can actually talk with Robot Framework developers and people from the Robot Framework community that are actually contributing to the whole development and the whole system of Robot Framework. I recently started a web automation tutorial on Selenium, and I got an instant question of why don't I use browser library for Robot Framework because it is better and more stable. And at that point, I didn't know anything about browser library. And of course, I turned my attention to the Robot Framework community and tried to figure out what's with it and who's developing it and how. And fortunately, I did find out that a part of the team that is actually developing the Selenium library, it's also developing the browser library. And today, I am going to find out more about browser library from one of the main developers, who is called Mikko Korpela, and he's also a member of the Robot Framework Foundation. He's a board member, actually. So with that in mind, I would like to welcome Mikko and learn more about Robot Framework browser library. Hello, Mikko, and welcome to Robot
Hello.
Framework Tips, Tricks, and Tutorials.
Yeah, great to be here.
I'm glad you accepted my invitation.
No worries. Yeah, very nice to be here. Well, where should we start?
Well, first of all, I think Robot Framework is not that known around the world. So if Robot Framework is not known, then its developers and the team is not known. So maybe I think it's best if we start with a small introduction of yourself and the work that you have been doing for the Robot Framework and Robot Framework Foundation. And then we will get into the subject of the actual browser library.
Okay, yeah. Well, fortunately, I have finished material for this, so I'll show this. So my name is Mikko Korpela, and I work as an IT consultant in a company called Reactor. My current client is actually a Finnish satellite startup, and I usually work on, let's say, on front end side of development, and part of this is of course Robot Framework. And 10 years ago, I was actually part of the Robot Framework core team in Nokia, and in that time it was called Nokia Siemens Networks, and then the name changed quite a bit because of, well, Apple came and whole phone business kind of got to a different level, etc. But Robot Framework was developed inside there, and I was part of that team for about 2 or 3 years. And during that time, I especially worked with the tool called Ride, which is an editor for Robot Framework, and also on the core tool and a couple of other libraries there. But later on, I at one point started also thinking about this parallelization problem, about Robot Framework parallelization, the test parallelization, so that you can execute test cases on multiple machines or multiple processes at the same time. And based on that, made a small open source tool called Babot, which has been now, well, maintained by me for the past 5 or 6 years or so. And well, nowadays, like 1 year ago, we started also this browser library thing, and I think we're now focusing on that. So let's.
And by the looks of it, you did a very good job.
Yeah, but it wasn't me only. So there were a lot of other people also. Like 1 year ago, I was working for a client, and we used Cypress at that point for web automation. And then I kind of like thought about whole Robot Framework community and how it has been using Selenium for a long time, and how nowadays there are a lot of like different options for web automation, Cypress, and then I knew about Puppeteer, and there were others also. And then I started talking to Tatu Aalto, who was on my machine. He has a picture of him with the sunglasses on, like my picture there also. So Tatu said that actually the Puppeteer team, and it works with Chrome, basically. All the versions at that point mostly works with Chrome. And Tatu said that okay, the same team actually has been now moved to Microsoft, and they are doing a new tool that actually works on all three major browser engines. Basically, there's the WebKit, which is Safari, and then Chromium, which is Chrome and Edge, and then Firefox, which is the third one. So you can get like full coverage with this tool.
So basically, Microsoft finally got something back from Google.
Yes. Well, it seems that they've been lately doing a lot of like shopping. So for example, the GitHub, which I am currently showing here, is owned by them nowadays. So they will own the whole development environment, and of course the Visual Studio Code that I'm going to use is going to be from there. But anyway, so me and Tatu then started working on that. We did a small prototype that shows that basically browser or Playwright can be used from Robot Framework, and showed that on the Robot Framework Foundation, or let's say officially association meeting. So we showed it on some level there, and I just asked that well, would anyone be interested in this? And unfortunately, there was some people like Antti Karjalainen from RoboCorp who said that okay, I'm actually willing to put some investment on this. So we got Janne Härkönen and Kerkko Pelttari, who were paid for doing this for about a month last summer. So they did a really big speed up for the getting the project running. And then later on, Rene also joined our team, and well, basically Janne has been, well, he's like alumnus now, so he's doing other business, but we all others are like hobby working on this browser library from that point on.
So it's an ongoing development and an ongoing rising team.
Yeah, and there's been a ton of people involved with this. So, well, some of the contributors, hopefully all that we try to get everyone's picture on the page who has done something, but might be that there's someone missing. But currently there's like, I don't know how many people, many already, and for example, Brian, Tanaikiat, Maaret, Carlo, Frank, Christoph, Mika, and Impus, well, some companies also. And well, it's been quite a ride and fun for doing this. And well, people who have actually found some bugs also, because test automation is good to develop test automation tools, because people are testers and they can find the problems from there.
Yeah, especially as testers, we like to ruin the work of a good developer.
Yeah, and we thank you.
With this big team, because I see it's a very big team, so what was that started this project? Why did you consider that developing a new browser library would worth the time, the effort, and the money?
No, complicated question.
What were the advantages? Because everybody used Selenium, and Selenium is somehow fast. So I believe that there were some big advantages compared to Selenium, and that's why you started this.
Yeah, well, basically, one of the biggest is that the DevTools API that the browser library uses to communicate with the browser is quite efficient. So it's quite bind to how actually Chrome works, and nowadays it's kind of standardized. So now there's also Safari and Firefox bindings for those, but they are still, well, that gives us speed and also accuracy on the tests. So speed is like one of the big advantages, and also there's, well, let's see if there's in documentation all the advantages. Where can I find them?
Always a good documentation will help you in the time of need.
Yeah, keyword documentation. Well, here from this basically, then we have like a lot of like these better selectors in this tool. So it's kind of fast compared to, let's say, Selenium library, but the selector syntaxes and selectors in the tool are a bit more advanced. So you can combine selectors and there's like a lot of selector things here.
One of the most interesting things I saw on a presentation also made by you guys was that for a certain element inside the web page, you managed to write a selector that combined an ID, a CSS, and the text. And that is very cool because we know that the limitation of CSS, one of the limitations of the CSS is that you cannot target the text element. So combining CSS with XPath, in my opinion, gives you the great possibility of extending your strategy of selecting elements to a whole nother level.
Yeah, that's true. So basically you can combine these quite easily together. There's also like the Playwright tool that the browser library is actually using is also like under construction. They are evolving quite a lot. So they have added more selectors even during this year. And for example, there's selectors that you can use to point that if there's an easy way to target some element that is underneath the element that you need, you can target with that, so that you have selector strategy that points that it's up from this element that you found. So there's a lot of like possibilities here, and well, a lot of documentation also about it. One thing is of course also the iframes. So we can pierce through the iframes inside the selectors. So you don't need to set the frame that you're working on.
You can like Selenium, yeah.
Yeah, you can just click through, like in this document, there's an example of clicking. If you have an ID of a iframe, then you can click through with this magic syntax here that, okay, it pierces that iframe, and then you can find the ID button that is in the site.
Okay, that's cool. So yes. I saw that one of the big advantages of browser library and one of the sources of its speed, it's actually the possibility to run the browser in a headless mode, but with JavaScript support. Yeah. Did I say that right?
Well, yeah. So by default, we execute things in headless mode, so it will not draw the browser at all for you, but actually inside of that, it's kind of like virtually running a browser. So it's magical headless browser somewhere inside of your computer running, but it's faster that way. It usually requires less resources and can be more easily executed, for example, in CI or GitHub Actions or anywhere else where screens are not available.
If I understood correctly, we are talking about total execution time of maybe half the time that is
Yeah.
needed for Selenium to do certain things?
Yeah, basically for normal cases, yeah, it can be like 1/3 or half. But then there's a big advantage from the way that you can construct test cases and reuse the browsers themselves in browser library. That is not possible in Selenium library, to my knowledge. So basically, you can isolate test cases that run in the same browser with different context. So basically, in browser library and in the Playwright tool that it uses, we have basically three main elements that people need to be aware of. First one is the browser itself, like I'm showing this in a browser. And then we have context. And context is like a private browsing session. So when I start a new incognito window, that's a context. Everything that happens in this black box is inside this same context. And now I can easily make new pages. This new tab here is a page. And now I have two tabs that are inside this small context, which is different than this context here. And this allows isolating the test cases from each other quite easily, and reusing the same browser. You can basically log out and clear all the data from that system by closing the context altogether, and then reusing the same browser again. So now I have a new context here, and I can reuse that.
Basically, if we compare this to the normal Selenium behavior, let's say, in Selenium, if you want to use isolated environments, you need to open up multiple browsers, which will suck up more memory from your system. So with Playwright, you have the possibility to open only one browser and then isolate the environments by tabs. So each tab, it's an isolated environment, right?
Yeah, basically each of the context is an isolated environment. So, and context can have multiple tabs, but they are sharing some data together. So they could have like a single sign-on that works on all the pages on that. But then when you clean that context up, then and I'll open a new context, then that is again isolated environment. And the speed up from here is that quite expensive to do. So once you start a new browser, that can actually take a lot of time. So that is expensive. But making new context that's cheap operations. It can be like around 1 second, for example, to start a new browser. But the new context is few milliseconds, so it can be like 50 milliseconds. So you can, I would say, easily get like 20 or over 20 more context open in the same time than when opening one browser. So that's like a big advantage that you can easily get from using the browser library. So you can reuse the browsers that are expensive and then isolate your test cases on context levels.
Yeah, that is very interesting, and I'm sure that especially big teams with a big number of test cases will find this context method useful, because it saves a lot of resources and it saves a lot of time. I would like to ask you about one other thing I noticed, and I know that Selenium users are sick and tired of this. What's up with the waiting for the elements before being able to click on them or input text in a browser library?
Yeah, well, I don't know what's up with the Selenium libraries, but based on the knowledge of Tatu Alt and Rene, we kind of went on to another way of doing this. So we wait before they act. So this is something that is really important in our cases. So we have and also the Playwright itself, the tool underneath, waits until the elements that it tries to interact are a specific timeout before the keywords will fail if they don't find the elements. But we actually extended these to assertions also. So all the keywords actually, well, maybe I'll show this. So in our case, well, here's an example test case with that tries to see that if the URL on this specific page has certain elements there. I'll show you briefly on what kind of tool I'm talking about. So let's see. So it's this kind of routing tool. So I can easily go to a place like Helsinki, where I actually am currently. Where are you now?
We are in Brașov, Romania.
Romania. Let's see. Romania. Can I write it?
Yeah, that's
country.
it.
Let's see. But anyway, yep. So like this. And when I click this search button, which is localized in my country, it's Etsy. I would assume that in Romania it's something else. But anyway, the URL here contains that I'm starting from a specific point and then I'm going to a certain different location. And the test case that I'm currently like in this thing focusing on is actually checking that the URL contains that we start from Helsinki and then we are actually going in that test case to Oulu, which is another city in Finland, almost as long way as Romania. It's a long country, but first test case is like what you would most likely do in Selenium library, or you could have some actual test or test keyword that checks that the URL contains certain elements. But anyway, here we're taking the URL using the browser libraries. You get URL method or keyword, and then we're checking that it contains certain elements. And this of course fails if at this point when we're doing this, the URL is on some kind of other state. Then how people have been like fixing this until now is that you can wrap this into a wait until keyword succeeds, which is a robot framework basic built-in library keyword, and then you can basically poll until this is done. So it will then check out the URL and check out if it contains the expected result, and it will poll that for 1 second every 10th of a second. And this is like how it's been done until now. This is the waiting problem. And now what we have done is that in our keywords you can add these assertions at the end of the keyword. And for example, here the get URL method or keyword in our case has this assertion that the URL that this get contains certain elements. So point Helsinki equal and point Oulu. And in our case, this actually has the timeout. So that this wraps everything in it. And you don't have to like wait explicitly for anything to happen. It's all happening inside this. And that's a big advantage and helps a lot.
We are now passing from a method from Selenium, which was basically kind of make action, wait for something, make second action, wait for something, and there was a lot of actions and waiting during this process that were making the test cases and the executions longer. While now we, with browser library, we only declare the actions and the weighting is done at the library level automatically.
Yeah, that's basically, we try to automate as much weighting as possible, so that anyone using the library shouldn't have to do that, because it's kind of like you're focusing on the wrong problems there. You should be focusing on making the test cases that actually find bugs or ensure that the system under test actually works as it expected, instead of waiting. Yeah. Let's try another one. I'm quite confident this works. So let's try another one. I want to show that meaning of life test case. And this is just an example of how this, well, they changed it. So now I'm pretty sure it will work. So this button had a small problem. Let's now see that.
Okay, that worked.
All right, and like the thing here is basically that, well, there's one sleep in here, and that's at the end, so we can see what actually happens. And well, I can remove that, but then you will not actually see anything. This test case, we go to a website which is kind of asynchronous. There's a lot of happening in between things, and you most likely in Selenium library world would have a lot of waits
definitely
here and there. But here you just open the browser to the page, which is Wolfram Alpha, which is this funny search engine where you can type whatever interesting things and it tries to answer you. So I try to type what is the meaning of life, and click the submit button, and then I just wait for the answer, which basically happens here. So I wait for an answer, and that answer contains a text result, and then we're combining that with an XPath, get an image object from there, and the alternative text for that starts with the numbers 42, which is the correct answer, for example, for the what is the meaning of life question from a book called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Then I sleep for 5 seconds, but
you will not do that in a real environment kind of situation.
Yeah, but this is kind of like really powerful thing. This text weighting actually happens quite instantly after clicking the submit button. So you don't have to sleep anywhere there. It just automatically happens. And well, it was kind of like I tried to find a place where I would have actually needed to have some kind of sleep, and this works in this kind of environment also. So most likely I don't need to usually use sleeps at all. All right.
And I know that
that was my example.
I know that with Selenium, whenever you have a test that is running very fast, you also have the possibility to slow down the execution a bit. So maybe at one point you want to see what's going on. Is there a way to do this in the browser library, like for this particular case?
Yeah, there's some multiple ways of doing it. One is that the type text takes a delay, so we can delay typing of text. So I can just write here the delay, for example, 1.1 second, 0.1 second, and then it will wait between every character, 0.1 second. That's one option. But then we have a lot of other things, and I'm just going to show you one of those. And if I can presenter mode, let's just.
So in Selenium, that would be set Selenium speed, right?
Yeah, this is basically a bit different. Presenter mode is kind of mode where you can present what is actually happening inside the test case, and I can set it true, and we can actually remove that sleeve from there. In that case, I think this now will do magic things if everything's correct. So it will actually highlight the elements before using them.
Okay, that's quite nice.
And also, yeah, for example, now it should highlight. Well, the last one actually passed so fast that it didn't highlight anything. But it will also wait for a couple of seconds at the end so you can see what happened there.
It seems that it's also highlighting
So that's one
actions, right? Not because it did not
Yeah,
highlight
yeah.
the getting attribute from that element.
Yeah, but we can highlight that also. One option is to do this, so you can see that also. But so there's like these convenience methods to, if you need to show where you are and what are you doing currently, you can see them also. Let's see, it should, or maybe the highlight goes away a bit. Well, who knows? Such a small element, that image tag that I'm trying to target, that it's not shown.
But the idea is that we can, we can control the execution, and although it is fast, we have a way of making it a bit slower so we can actually check for individual elements.
Yeah, and if you go and log from the terminal, you actually see that it will also warn about using the open browser keyword there, which is the slow one. You can use this for when you're talking to humans, but if you want to do this like the machine style, then you would only put here new page, and this should show a bit less of things here, so you can only see dots on your command line, and then it passes, and that's like the fastest way of doing it. So you can just call the new page. This also shows one nice feature, is that when I call the new page, I didn't explicitly open a browser or a context, so it automatically just opens these if they are not available, and it will also automatically reuse if browser was available already. Which is kind of nice.
And at the end of the test, the page that you used during the test execution is automatically closed, right?
Yeah.
Or at the end of the suite, let's say.
Yeah, you can control that also. So basically, the idea is that we have this auto closing mechanism, and it will by default it will close everything on test case level, or everything else but the browser. So if you have opened multiple pages during this test execution, all of those will be closed. And well, let's put a headless false. I think the autocompletion isn't working currently on my machine. I think it was headless. Yeah, it needs to be on the browser. So it's set up new browser here. Headless false. So now we're running on a headful browser here and opening some pages here. And then if I have a new page, new test page thing, do you have a place where I could go?
Due to the pandemic, we're not going anywhere, but let's try going to Google, because that's the start of every adventure.
Yeah. let's go to Google.com, and for actually seeing something, I'll sleep 5 seconds after that. Actually closed everything, but anyway, I'm just opening pages here and there, and let's put here another sleep because I'm trying to talk about not sleeping. So
for everybody watching,
try.
sleep is not a good strategy to include in your development environment. It's just for demo purposes, and that's it.
Yeah. Yes. Good to show that to people. Okay. So basically, while you were talking, everything already happened. So the first test case opened a lot of pages, and after that, it closed all those pages automatically. And in the next test case, it just had the new page one open there. It closes everything on those levels. There's a lot of like more level or ways of doing this, and they are documented in the document. What is it? Browser library, library documentation, and where can
I'm guessing you're not the one who made the documentation.
Not this part. Auto closing. Yes, auto closing level. So this can be done on the importing. So there's the main thing is the test level, but you can then also set that actually close everything after the switch, or then you can say manual, and that will disable the whole mechanism, and then you have to do it by yourself.
Okay.
Yes.
So
any questions?
yes, I actually started playing a bit with the browser library, and I already migrated a part of a project of mine, and indeed the results were fantastic. So running in headless mode, not having to wait for elements was a true lifesaver. But I did find something that was a bit confusing for me, and I'm guessing it's confusing for a lot of people. There are those keywords that are called promise to, and I didn't actually understand what's the whole idea behind them. Can you share that with us?
Yes. Let's try to share that idea. So I'll have to go to a different location in my test cases to see that. Basic waiting. Where there? Yeah. This is again from the Grabhopper side that I used previously. So this side. So one cool thing about browser library is that you can actually also wait on the HTTP calls that it makes, the browser makes to the internet. And here we have certain HTTP calls that we are actually waiting for, and they are promised to wait for. So here we are using the promise to feature, but to actually explain what it does, I'll show the example. So if you go to your browser, there's the developer tools here, and here's the network tab, which shows what the network traffic is in the browser. And I was going from Helsinki to oh no, now it's going everywhere. There's a lot of traffic. Helsinki and Romania. Like so. So basically everything this happens during while I was typing there, and there's a lot of like routes and stuff that it tries to do, and that all happens on the background
at an API
while I'm
level,
doing stuff.
right?
And and where was it? There? Where in this test case, we're actually doing it so that we type text Turku, which is a town in Finland, and Tampere, which is another town in Finland, and we try to search for a route between those. So we click the search button, which was here. But before we click that, we kind of like move to this another thread where instead of executing stuff, we just say that, okay, while I'm doing things here, please start waiting for this kind of response from the servers on the
So you are testing the front
so
end and the API with the same library.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, but instead of doing it like sequentially, like here, like we're doing an action, then we're doing another action, and etc. What is happening here is that we just, let's say I'm doing these actions, that this was the first action that was done, this was then, this was then, and then I just say that, let's say somebody else, another like thread of execution does these. So this is happening next. So new page, type text, then I'm clicking. But before clicking, I actually said that on the background, in the background process, please start waiting for this kind of thing, and start waiting for this kind of thing, and start waiting for this third kind of thing. And I just promise I get this kind of object that contains that, or this kind of value that contains that promise, that okay, at one point when I say that now actually on this front wait for these three things to happen, this will then execute or get back to the execution loop at this point. I would love to draw this.
Go ahead.
Let's, yeah. And unfortunately, my drawings tools are a bit off here. So let's see if I have something. What can I do to do that?
Yeah, because I saw there were a lot of keywords with the title promise to it. Was promise to wait for something, promise to wait for download, promise to, and yeah, the concept is a bit
it's a bit hard concept, and maybe it would be best to draw it. But so promises, so basically when you're executing a test case, it's happening like this. So you're like click button or click, then you for example get some text there, then you click again, etc. But promises are basically that a thing that you can do during this execution, so that at for example here at this time when you have get text but you haven't clicked the next element yet, you can spin another like this kind of execution that is happening parallel to this your execution. And when we're saying that you promise something, we're actually getting a like a pointer to this other execution here, and it can happen while you are doing something. We are clicking and we're doing some other actions, and when you say that you want to wait for what the promise is promise P1. When you say that you want to wait for that P1, it will actually go back here. So you can kind of like execute something while you're executing something else, which is a new concept in robot framework land. usually in robot framework, this has to be done on libraries inside those libraries. That if you want to have executing something that is happening on background, that has happened only on library levels. But in this case, we have exposed these promises, or this concept of promises, that you can basically say that, okay, at this point, wait, promise to do this action. So we're promising here that at some point, please do this action. And that is there. Then we do something like we're clicking and I don't know what else, browsing the world of internet and Google and go there. And then at one point we just said, okay, wait for this process to be finished, or this promise to be finished. So that is the point where we're actually like combining these two executions there. So after that, they will kind of go together onwards. And this is useful when you want to, for example, if there is some thing that you need to observe while you are clicking. Like in our case, when I'm in this test case or clicking this button here, it might be that if I'm waiting for these requests, these server requests to happen, and I start that waiting after this clicking, that might end up into a situation where that action actually already happened. I was too slow doing that waiting. So if I start the waiting beforehand.
Okay, so basically this is helping you achieve two things in parallel at the right time, let's say. Okay.
Yeah. So this is parallel execution in robot framework. Let's put a robot, because I can draw like here. No.
By the way, who come up with this new logo?
Some designer. I don't know, but it was something that the foundation actually bought it from some designer. I can.
Yeah, it's not important. I was just curious because it's so simple and it's made out of two colors, and there you have it. Thank you, Mikko. That was a very, very interesting explanation of Promise 2, and we had a lot of cool features explained about the new browser library compared to Selenium library, and not only. So in the end, after we talked about the browser library history and we talked about its advantages and all that, I think there is only one question left to answer. Where is this product or this project heading? So what's the future of this library? What are you planning on implementing next?
Well, there's like, we have a lot of ideas. I personally have a couple of things that I would like to still implement there. One is basically a selector strategy where you can basically record your selector, so that the test case will pause where if you don't have the selector for it, and then you can just click on the element that you want to select, and then the test case could somehow use that selector again. So this kind of interaction, making it easier for people to find selectors. That's one like major theme, at least for me, because selectors are a bit hard thing and people need to do them a lot. Another thing we've been talking about is a crawler, basically a page scrolling mechanism that could, for example, take screenshots of your whole web app that you are testing, so that it can automatically go through the web page, and that might be a useful tool also. And of course, we're like the main thing is to keep up with the development of Playwright itself, because there's a lot of that happening. So those are one or two things that we're focusing on at this point, at least. So
Okay.
yeah, and of course we're just trying to grow the tool use. So trying to, if people have any problems or anything, we try to solve those, and that's a major part of, well, the product maintenance. Or
yeah, so you have a dedicated repository, and even I got a chance to fill you in with an issue. It's regarding the compatibility with Electron apps.
Okay.
If that would happen, it would be a very big plus. Also, something just popped into my mind, something we did not mention during our discussion, and I do believe it is of very great importance. The fact that compared to Selenium, where you have to install Selenium and download your Webdrivers or install them using a Selenium server or whatever, if you want to use the browser library, it comes pre-packed with everything you need, and it automatically updates the versions as you are going along with your browser, right? So you don't need to do anything from this point of view.
It downloads the browsers themselves, so they are like isolated inside of the library. There is one caveat with that, and that is that the browsers are quite a big, so it can be, when it downloads all the browsers, it can be like 600 megabytes or something like that. I don't remember the exact size, but that's one problem with that. Or, well, problem, but small thing to notice, that it actually comes with pre-packed browsers.
Yeah.
Because but it's totally different to Selenium, where you have to like manually integrate it.
Well, folks, this was the knowledge sharing session with our first robot framework community member. We hoped to have an interesting session in which we discussed about a very actual subject. And I would like to thank you, Mikko, for taking the time to explain all this. And I hope that this information will reach as many robot framework fans that don't know that there is now a greater alternative to Selenium, that they can start immediately transforming and speeding up their existing test cases. So thank you again. I hope you have a nice day and a good weekend. And maybe at one point we will create another knowledge sharing session on another subject. Why not?
Yeah. Thank you.
It was nice talking to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.